This is KSL Sunday Edition with Boyd Matheson.
Well, welcome to Sunday Edition. I am Boyd Matheson. Each Sunday we attempt to divide the rage from the reason, elevate the conversation, connect the dots, and make the news make sense. We have conversations with great thinkers, great leaders, and great people making a difference. We talk politics so we can discuss society, and we explore society so we can discuss the principles and the people in America who live them. We bring the best and brightest to Utah, and we send the Utah model to our nation's capital and beyond. Well, there's a leadership void in Washington, D.C., lack of vision, lack of principled debate and compromise, lack of integrity, and a lack of moral conviction and personal character that has exposed the political left and the political right as being far more concerned with the preservation of their own power, money, and influence than on the preservation of the nation and the prosperity of the American people. I am convinced that with the local, national, and international challenges of our day, leadership matters more than ever, and character absolutely counts. Now, someone who understands this in a real way and is living it in a powerful way is Joel Searby. Joel is a political and leadership professional with 17 years experience in political campaigning, government affairs, corporate and nonprofit strategic planning, leadership development, faith-based initiatives, and new politics, which is the key to all of this. He's run political campaigns from local races to an independent presidential bid. Joel's working to create values-based, character-inspired leaders and joins us now to discuss. Joel, welcome to Sunday Edition.
Thank you, Boyd. Great to be with you.
You know, you recently quoted Utah's junior Senator Mitt Romney as saying, bad policy we can overcome as a country, we have in the past. Bad character is something which is very difficult to overcome. You've been driving a new way of politics, which is values-based. Describe that for us.
Sure, Boyd. Well, I launched the New Way Politics movement, Substack group, if you will, with a real focus on shifting our conversation in particularly political leaders and elections from a policy-based conversation or a power-based conversation, as you pointed out, or a personality-based conversation, which is a large number of political races out there right now, to a values-based conversation. And that is a very specific contrast. It doesn't mean, when you say a values-based leadership approach in politics, that there's some kind of Pollyanna view that we don't have to take stances, that there's not power dynamics involved, that politics isn't tough. It's that underneath kind of the why, the how of what we're doing when we run campaigns, when elected leaders and those who want to be elected leaders put themselves forward, that there is a real set of core values that drive the activity. And then perhaps most importantly, the decision-making that happens in that activity.
Yeah, no question. I want to get to some of those things because, as you said, it's not about Pollyanna. It's not about glasses that are rose-colored or half full or half empty. It gets down to some of those core issues, and I want to go through some of those because I think they matter to this discussion. We need to change it. And I want to start with this area of personal character. When you talk about that from, again, this sphere, what is it that you're really driving at?
Yeah, I try to lay out a number of value areas that I think are important for candidates and really political professionals as well to stick to. And so in personal character, I try to keep it relatively simple. Commit to being ethical and honest and humble and tough. That tough part is important to me, and also helps to kind of fight back against this notion that, well, values are weak. In fact, I think it's our values that make us strong, and it's when we abandon our values that we're weak. It's why I think we're in a position right now as a country that our position in the world is weakening. It's because we've abandoned a lot of our core values of how we treat each other. And so being ethical, honest, and humble are really important. Adding the toughness recognizes that this is not an easy game that we play called politics.
Let's talk about another area that has been fascinating for me. We've become so transactional in our politics. You focused on relationships rather than transactions.
You know, relationships are the core of politics. Whether you are looking at it through a negative lens or a positive lens, politics is the business of relationships. It's brokering deals. It's getting to a point where we can govern together. That is the grand experiment that we have in this country. And so if we don't think long and hard about how we interact with one another relationally, I think we're on a really dangerous path, and that's where we're at. And so, you know, my commitment in relationships is to be collaborative, to be a listener, to be open-minded, It doesn't mean that you're soft on your principles. It doesn't mean that you're squishy on your values. I think being open-minded is realizing that, you know what, sometimes you're wrong. Back to that personal character value of being humble. We're not always all right. And if we can't admit that as leaders and as professionals in the political world, we're going to put our feet down in places that we shouldn't put them down. And then we're going to end up with solutions that don't work for people. And that is true in local communities, and it's true all the way up to the federal level.
Yeah, no question about that. And I want to get in one more component here, and that is how we evaluate the world. We live in this space of moral relativism, and my truth seems to be the driver of the day. You said we can have a different conversation when it comes to truth. Tell us about that.
Well, I keep it pretty simple on this one, Boyd, which is I believe that there is truth and we should seek it. You know, it's an interesting moment in our history. I remember when I was in college quite a while ago, learning about the postmodern movement and how we were moving into this relativistic zone. And it was very often cast as kind of a leftist idea, right? That everyone's truth is their own truth. And it was largely coming from kind of the academic and philosophical and political left. But in the recent 5 years, that has been adopted almost entirely by the right as well, the far right and the far left. And here's the really interesting dynamic. It is a great unifier, I believe, of everyone who rejects the two extremes to say, you know what, there actually is truth. And we're going to have to seek it, and we're going to have to find it. And we can't just say that, you know, I'm going to make up a fact because that's what I want to see happen. And we have to really seek that truth together.
Yeah, so important. Well, we're going to stay with the conversation with Joel Searby here on Sunday Edition. When we come back, we're going to look at how you actually apply New Way politics to real-world challenges when Sunday Edition continues on KSL 5 TV. We'll be right back. Well, welcome back to Sunday Edition. We're staying with the conversation with Joel Searby and New Way Political Leadership Network with a mission to elevate, connect, and grow leaders for change in this critical moment in our nation. Joel, you say that the two-party system has built a massive economic model that produces values-bankrupt professionals and candidates to a nearly universal degree. Describe to us why that is. Why are the incentives so backwards?
Well, it's rooted really in a system, Boyd, and I think that's important to note that I say that with a pretty sharp edge, but not to attack my fellow political professionals or any specific candidates, though I think some have really become, honestly, you know, values bankrupt. But to understand that the way that the two-party system works is that it creates these two, what I'll call unvirtuous cycles, ecosystems, business ecosystems of professionals and candidates who are driven solely by the purpose of maintaining the political power of that particular entity. And whether that's the political party or whether that's a faction within a political party, these ecosystems spring up where there are professionals who will do that kind of work and candidates who rely on those professionals, and then donors who want to see that particular way advanced. And it just creates this cycle where values are completely thrown out, and the only thing that matters is winning, and therefore all the gloves are off and all the boundaries are off. And we'll say things and do things and bend the truth and break the truth that we wouldn't otherwise do. And I understand why it's happening, because it's a political and economic system that is people are making a living and feeding their families on this. I'll never forget when I first started jumping into the independent space, trying to find other political professionals who would help me, many of whom really believed in the work I was trying to do, but would say things to me like, I just can't do it. I got to feed my family. And what they meant was, if I work with you on an independent race of some kind or some kind of reform effort, I will be blacklisted by the partisan ecosystem. And for me, it was normally out of the Republican side, but it also happens on the Democratic side. And so they were disincentivized from doing something different or values-based because they had to feed their families. Yeah. And that's just a real problem.
Yeah, and I think as you look at that, that was one that was always stunning to me. You would have someone who was a great polling company, or someone who's a great strategic marketing company or a fundraising company, and they would get all excited about a candidate, but then if there was someone from the, quote, establishment, either Democrat or Republican, that big industrial complex, they would say, sorry, I can't do it because I'll lose all my other businesses and my other clients. And so talk to us, how do we start to get past that? I know you're launching something new that I think is long overdue, big hole in the marketplace, to create space so that people can say, okay, I can go out and do something that's right, or I can help a candidate that I really believe in and not worry about losing all my other clients in the process.
Yeah, so what I recognize, Boyd, I grew up in the Republican political system for the first 10 years of my political career. And the parts that are virtuous and not unvirtuous about that system is that it's a community of people, professionals and candidates who can get connected to one another to go run races and win them. That doesn't exist for people who want to run in a new way, whether they be people who want to run as independents or maybe minor party candidates, or even Republicans or Democrats who just kind of reject maybe the extremes of their parties. They all have a hard time finding professionals. And so I've known that. I've seen that for the last decade. I described it a minute ago. And I finally realized that no one's going to build this unless I do. And so I'm launching the New Way Politics Leadership Network to meet that need. So candidates who want to run in a different way, they need access to consultants, pollsters, digital folks, data, fundraisers. They need access to best practices. How do I run my campaign? How do I go about even thinking about running for office? And then professionals who now, 10 years ago, I couldn't hardly get them to even talk to me. Now there's a huge number of political professionals who have said, I reject the craziness that's going on. I want to be a part of a solution. I want to work for candidates who want to run in a different way. I want to work for reform organizations who want to help break up systemic problems. And so we're creating this leadership network to allow those people to come in, to know one another, to be connected to one another, and for those candidates in particular to get the services they want. But again, all against this values-based backdrop. That's my lens that I'm looking through. If people want to be a part of it, I'm going to say, can you be on board with these values? Can you approach personal relationships and integrity and truth and systems in this kind of way? And that's what we're doing.
I think that's such a powerful model. And let's talk just in our closing moments here of how you do create that space. Because part of it, I think, is everyone saying, what are you afraid of? And of course, politicians will tell us you can vote for whoever you want, but if you don't vote for me, you'll lose power, you'll lose influence, all of those things. How do we create space so that those people of character with integrity, not just Pollyanna, kumbaya kind of stuff, but winning elections and governing, how do we create that space?
Well, I go back to what we started with, Boyd, which is I really believe that it's our values that make us strong. And when we abandon our values, that's what makes us weak. We have allowed ourselves to believe this lie that what we really need is a strong man or strong woman whose values we're just going to forget about. We don't care what values they have as long as they will fight for the things that I want. And I just think that's actually the weak approach to take. And so we have to reinsert values as a strength and as a way that makes us strong. So we avoid that Pollyanna, kind of, oh, well, this is the weaklings are running on values. No, the strong people run on values. We look at our greatest leaders over the course of this country. I guarantee you will find core values at the center of that. And so how do we do that? We've got to put wins on the board. We need independents, minor party candidates, non-extreme partisans to be winning races. And that's why I'm building this ecosystem and this network. We have to be able to win.
So important, and that does matter in the end. Joel Searby, we appreciate you joining us today and this extraordinary effort to actually get back to those core values and character-based campaigns is such a vital part of this conversation. Clearly, the country is ready for this. No one is excited for what is on the board currently, especially at the presidential level. It is a great opportunity to break up the political industrial complex, get back to the core values and character that has made this country extraordinary. Joel, thanks so much for joining us today on Sunday Edition.
Thank you, Boyd. Great to be with you.
Again, so great to have Joel Searby join us today. We're going to return to this idea of character and the need for it in America today when Sunday Edition continues here on KSL 5 TV. Stay with us. We'll be right back. Welcome back to Sunday Edition. The word character seems to be under attack. It's rarely used in the media these days without lack of being placed in front of it. And true, there are countless examples of lack of character and lack of characters that span business, executives, Hollywood celebrities, famous athletes, along with political figures and government officials. The steady stream of those living without character has led me to wonder about the cause of character in our country and how to positively make the case for why character counts. My reflections took me back to a man of extraordinary character, my great uncle Marvin Pugh, and a piece I first published in the Deseret News back in 2008. So, according to the NCAA, the 3 weeks of nonstop football between December the 20th and January 13th are supposed to be the most wonderful time of the year, with 40 highly hyped and corporately sponsored bowl games, supposedly featuring terrific young men who altruistically are committed to their teammates and schools, with wise coaches who are equally committed to building character in their players while serving their communities. Yet it seems that the stories of what college football is supposed to be about, hard work, common goals, overcoming adversity, pride, character, teamwork, and sportsmanship, are becoming few and far between. Instead, we're force-fed the unsettling and ingestion-inducing buffet of stories around barroom brawls and boosters bankrolling the breaking of rules, or police reports instead of history reports, scores relating to DUI instead of ACT, administrators allowing or ignoring academic fraud, and thugs who get a free pass because they're talented enough to either throw or catch one. While the list of problems of what's wrong with college athletics is long and lengthening, the list of solutions seems to be very short and is usually presented by shoulder-shrugging administrators who swiftly pass the buck or say it's simply beyond their control. Now, I was given a gift back in 2008 that has caused me to wonder if the solution to what ails college athletics could be as simple as a letter and a sweater. So the gift I received came from my great-uncle, Marvin Pugh, who back in 2008 was 96 years old and was the oldest living letterman from the University of Utah football team from the 1930s. Uncle Marv presented me with one of his prized letterman sweaters, and equally important, he gave me a copy of the letter he received from the University of Utah Athletic Council at the time he was given his sweater and became an official U-man. So, beholding the bold letter U stitched on the deep crimson red sweater, while reading the letter from the council caused me to see how the simple lessons of the gridiron had become a bedrock of true character, which Marvin Pugh then parlayed into a life of significance and service with a legacy of loyalty, leadership, and love. So, as I read this letter from the Athletic Council, I want you to think of what could happen if every NCAA athlete was committed to live up to the standard of the letter on their sweater. So it's dated May 15th, 1934, to Marvin Pugh. It reads, "You are being granted a sweater emblematic of an athlete who has won his right to wear an official U. This means that you've complied with the rules of competition as laid down by the Rocky Mountain Conference and also of your own institution. Not only have you met the athletic rules, but also the scholastic rules. You've proved your absolute right to this award, and it is the honor of the Associated Students to grant this award to you. This award is not merely a sweater with an emblem on it. It has years of tradition back of it. It stands for something far more than a mere piece of clothing. It means loyalty and service to your school." Now for a bit of advice on its use. I love that they give advice. This sweater is given to you and you alone. The public recognizes its wearer as having achieved athletic distinction. That's something you cannot transfer or sell to others. No one else has the right to wear your sweater. The sweater's given to honor you, and you have no authority to attempt to pass that honor on to someone else. And then I love this part of the letter. It's vital that you keep the sweater clean, and under no condition should it be worn when it's not clean. We want you to use it. We like to have people respect you for having won such distinction, but that respect can only be maintained if you keep the sweater clean and under no conditions trade it. It's made of excellent materials and will stand cleaning. Utah is proud to publicly mark you as one of its honored sons. Do your fair part as one of those sons to continue to merit that honor. And then it concludes one other thing. By wearing this sweater, you identify yourself as an athlete, a high-minded man, and a gentleman. And in so doing, it is your duty to wear the sweater only where respectable men gather. Any transgression of the rules may be taken up by the Athletic Council, and offenders will be penalized accordingly. But it is our hope that in no case will this be necessary. Signed, the Athletic Council. I love that letter. Simple, powerful, practical words and principles that not only led Marvin Pugh to do things that mattered during his playing days, but also set him on a path toward a life of meaning, doing things that mattered far more than scoring points or winning championships. So think about it. How would the landscape of college football change if a Letterman sweater were only awarded to those who lived up to a higher standard of personal behavior? What if instead of wearing the sweater as a way to get perks and privileges and payoffs, athletes wore them to demonstrate their commitment, their loyalty, and service to their schools? How would the culture within athletic departments change if, rather than wearing that letter with an attitude of entitlement, student athletes wore them gratefully, with humility and the quiet dignity that comes from being an honored member of the university? And how many young people, old and young, would really be inspired to be better if athletes were worthy role models and wore their Letterman sweater or jacket as an emblem of their commitment to being a high-minded man and a gentleman? Well, I hope you enjoy the NCAA's 2023 version of the most wonderful time of the year. But as you watch these athletes of all shapes and sizes stepping off of buses and planes wearing with pride a Letterman sweater, we should also pause, we should also ponder the significance of what that letter and sweater truly represent and the impact it may have on the life of a young person. So while Marvin Pugh's playing days at the University of Utah in the 1930s were never really recorded in the history books, by living up to the standard of the letter on his sweater, his impact and influence have been recorded in the hearts, minds, and souls of so many other people. Marvin Pugh made a difference as a you-man, as a loyal man, as a serving man, an athletic man, as a high-minded man, and as a gentleman. In short, Marvin Pugh exemplified the simple solution, not only for what ails college athletics, but what is killing our country. He's shown the power of living to a higher standard of character and the impact of a simple symbol like a letter on a sweater. Well, that wraps it up for us on Sunday Edition today. I'm Boyd Matheson. Thanks so much for joining us. And as always, as you go out into the world today, make sure you see something that inspires, say something that uplifts, and do something that makes a difference. Music and the spoken word is next.